Hello, everyone, and good morning. An exciting show for you today from Chat CANNA. We are so happy that you have joined us. Normally, Veronica is with us every morning at this time, but we're hoping she's going to jump in here at any moment. But we have an exciting show for you from a hemp farmer that is into it in many, many different ways. Down in the Zumbrota area. And where's that, you say? Well, just go down on south of Minneapolis on Highway 52, and about when you get to the Rochester area, then you'll know you're there. What have we got on the photo there right now? Well, that is the Fright Farm. We're going to find out all about it. Here's our guest today. His name is Ted. Ted, welcome to the show. And it's just the two of us, so it's you're on for 50% instead of 30% here today. So let's get chatting and see what's going on today. Welcome to Chat CANNA.
Well, thanks for having me, John.
First of all, a little background. Why are you in this crazy business?
Why am I in this crazy business? Well, as you might have saw in that first picture, this all started with a haunted attraction. So we actually had a haunted attraction down in Rochester, and it started out of my house. We were doing that just to kind of help the community, get people, excited about Halloween. And I did that for 3 years. It grew to 1,500 people in two nights. And then Olmsted County said, you need to find a new location. So we moved our location to the History Center of Olmsted County, and we did Fright at the Farm at that location for 5 years, and then went through 3 different directors and just a whole plethora of problems dealing with, I don't know, just not having control, because it wasn't my farm and it was hard to just develop it. So then the last year there, we paid $10,000 to rent the barn. And we decided, you know what, if we're going to pay that much money, we might as well find our own farm. So that's what we did. We found this farm on Highway 52, which is very accessible. It's got a great, great visibility. I think there's rated to 60,000 cars driving by daily. And we started our haunt there, and ran that it's now, I think, our 6th season here. So we've been doing this haunt for 14 years. But the whole hemp development kind of happened in the last 3 years with the MDA hemp pilot project. But also we've been out here, we've got 9.5 acres, and we were growing pumpkins, and we also had a corn maze. And after doing that corn maze for 3 years, I was like, I need to find something different. And I looked into sunflowers, which would be beautiful, but you only have like a 2 to 3 week period for that. So that's not a real long period. And then I came across, I knew about hemp, I knew about industrial hemp, but I came across hemp, and I kind of researched it, and I found that the fiber variety grows 10 feet high. And I was like, that would be really, really cool.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we got into the hemp, because then I was like, well, I'm not growing corn this year. So 3 years ago in 2018, we said we're going to grow hemp. So we contacted Margaret at the Minnesota Department of Ag. I said, hey, can we do a hemp maze? And she said, well, yeah, that sounds good. Well, it'll be educational and research, because at that point, the hemp pilot project was supposed to be for educational and research purposes. Yep. I said, well, we're going to have it educational. There'll be stations out there. People will walk through, they'll learn about the hemp, and they'll get up close and personal with the plant. So she said, yeah, she had to kind of check, because she was worried, what if people take, I don't know, contraband? They take flower out of the field.
Sure.
So she was kind of concerned, but came back, said, no, it's all good, it's approved. And then I went with Legacy Hemp out of Wisconsin, and they actually donated seed the first year for it.
Wow,
so
nice.
We had about a 3.5 to 4 acre hemp maze. We grew X59, which was a grain variety, because unfortunately it's hard, even now it's still hard to find fiber varieties, but we went with X59. Now X59 only grows about 4 to 5 feet high, because you're using, that's a grain variety where you want to get a combine in there and take off the seed heads. There were some plants that, I don't know if they were genetic modifications, but they grew to 8 feet high. So there were some areas where there was some really tall standing hemp, but for the most part, it was about head high, which doesn't make a maze, really challenging, because you can see where you're going. But it's still, we had a good response, and then we went ahead and in 2019 grew X59 one more year. And then this year I was able to procure seeds from China. So I have a Han Ma variety that grows 10 to 12 feet high. And so our maze here is very, very impressive. It's right on the highway. I've got a 10-foot hole with a sign there that says 10 feet, and the hemp's above that. So it's really quite impressive.
Wow. Wow. What day did you plant it? When did it go in the ground?
Yeah, so this year we actually, I kind of had this game plan going. So we did light tillage in that area. It was actually where the old pumpkin patch was. So it was an old pasture that I'd been doing pumpkins for the last 3 years. And so we took that, I guess, last 4 years, I guess. So we took that offline and we did a light tilling of it. And then we used a seed drill. And on May 15th, we put it in the ground. And by July 15th, it was 8 feet high. So I opened up the maze. And then, it's still doing really well out there. The males are dying off. But yeah, there are males and females out there. Some of the flowers are actually turning purple now, and I don't know if that's just the change in the season or the change in the temperature. We had one night that was 36 degrees, so maybe that shocked them a bit, but it's quite beautiful out there. And
so how you hope to run the maze, I'm sure, as close to Halloween as you can.
Yeah, so originally, to be honest with you, we were only going to run the maze through September, and then I was going to harvest it down. Yeah. But here's a couple of reasons why I'm leaving it up. For one, COVID hit.
Yeah.
And guess what happens when you have a haunted attraction in COVID? It doesn't work very well.
All sorts of rules, yeah.
We have 10,000 square feet of indoor mazes, and those mazes this year are offline because you cannot go through a maze, and especially we have blackout mazes where you can't even see your hand in front of your face, and the actor pops out right in front of you. And even if you have masks on, you're supposed to keep a 3-foot distance. It's not going to happen. So what we decided to do is I sat down with my actors and my crew in July. I said, "Do you guys want to do the haunt?" And they all said yes. So we're doing the haunt, but it's an outdoor attraction. It's called the Abandoned Circus, and we've got all these party tents that are going up, and it's going to be circus themed. We're going to have sideshow and circus, characters. But then what we did is we said, we're just going to leave the hemp maze up because now we're going to have a haunted cannabis maze. Yeah. It's probably the first in the country. I don't know that anyone else has had a haunted cannabis maze, but that will stay up now through October, and then we will end up harvesting it. The other reason, I'm going to give you a second reason why.
Okay.
So we took 110 pounds of seed. This is what we planted with this Han Ma variety. And there was another, because we actually got a pallet load, and there was another individual that I have his card somewhere, but I can't remember his name. He actually came out and checked out our field a couple weeks ago, but he grew 6 acres. And the MDA went in, and I guess he got it tested early, even before it flowered, and it came back at 0.7.
So he's way over the 0.3.
Way over, but I don't think they're going to make him destroy it. At this point, what I think the MDA is telling them is that if you are only using the stalks, then we'll test and sample the stalks. And if the stalks are below 0.3, there's not going to be an issue. But my thing is, I did not want them to test it and then tell me that I have to destroy it. And I'd have to destroy it within 2 weeks, and I'd have to shut my maze down. So another reason why to keep it up, I'm going to keep it up, let it go to seed, let it do its thing, let it defoliate, and then I'll have them come test it at the end of October. And if they can find 0.7 in there, I would be highly suspect, because I don't think they're going to find that. I still think, and I know that's something we can talk about further, but I still think when you're dealing with fiber crop, you're not using the flowers, you're not using the seeds, you're using the stalks. So they should take the stalk, grind it up, and test the stalk. It's not going to, the cannabinoids live within the flower and within the trichomes. There's no trichomes in the stalk. There's nothing there. That's what they should be doing.
And ironically, even if it's not 0.7, but 1, it's still nothing of consequence for the, for the smoker that wanted to use it on the getting high side.
Well, unless you want to smoke rope, John.
Well, this is just so, I don't know why I'm blinking there. It's something about Halloween, or that's not a technical plan here, folks. It's so bizarre that, that they randomly chose this 0.3, And we're all fighting that. Now we're on research and development here. So we did 7 varieties this year, and they've all either gone high or were crappy. I mean, there's, when you're into the good stuff, and we did it on purpose. We're not raising to get product to sell. We're testing and learning and doing all that. So as it goes high, we're just destroying it. But
the reason being is that all these genetics, they're not stable. I mean, they've been they've been cross-pollinated and hybridized in the last 5 to 10 years. So you aren't going to have, even though you want to buy good genetics, obviously you want to have feminized seeds, but there's so many people out there doing what they think they're doing. And I hear horror stories, people getting, non-feminized seeds, or you're getting seeds that you don't know. They've crossed it with something. And what generation is that? We don't know. Yeah. And again, that's why the USDA has decided in their interim rules, their 88-page interim rules, not to have a certified seed program. Because why would they say there's going to be a certified seed program? It's easier for them to go after the grower, which is ridiculous, because if I test over 0.3, I got to destroy the crop. And if it's over 0.5, it'll be negligence on my part. If I get hit with that 3 times in a 3-year period, I lose my license for 5 years. And I can't even go back to the person that provided the seeds or the clones, because there's no certified seed program.
Right. Last year, we planted Chem cherry, and it was amazing. 25% of it was all autoflower. They all grew to 2.5 feet, little beautiful pyramids. But it was whatever it was, in the cycle of the genetics of the seed, it was a perfect 25%. So that it's, that it was the grandfather of that seed was an autoflower that it was still carrying forward. That seed was nowhere stable in any way, shape, or form.
So what was 25%? The CBD or the THC?
No, neither. The 25% of the plants autoflowered.
Oh, autoflower. 25% of your plants autoflowered.
So that as they were hybridizing them, that 2 generations ago, one of them was a pure autoflower plant, because it was exactly 25%. So half of it would have been a parent, so a quarter of it was the grandparent. And so whatever that seed was, just 2 generations ago, that was a hybrid where it had been, one of the grandparents was an autoflower, and that had in no way been bred carefully or bred to any kind of stability at all. And all of those autoflowers got pollinated. We don't know how, we don't know where. We had the males out long before they were fertile in our field. But
and that's, people ask me about that too, because we've done grain, we're doing fiber now, and then I do have a high cannabinoid field, so I've got CBD and CBG, and so that's where our maize used to be. So we have 3.5 acres of that growing. But one of the things that I tell people, we have males all over this farm. There's a fiber crop, and these males are 10 feet tall, 12 feet tall.
And the wind blows.
Yep, and all the hemp, all hemp is wind pollinated. Okay, so wind drift is what pollinates your plants. And I know, and you probably heard this too, if there's a feral hemp within 5 miles of your field, it will get pollinated. Now I'm going to go further than that. So we've had wildfires out in California on the West Coast. And we've had some cloudy, smoke-filled days here in Minnesota. So the jet stream goes from west to east. Now we also have hemp fields out in Colorado and out in California and Washington and Oregon, and they're growing it for grain, and they're probably starting to grow it for fiber. So there are males out there, and the males, they're going to do their thing. They're going to drop their pollen, and it's fine particulates that can get blown up into the jet stream, and it's going to go all the way across, and it's going to drop right down in Minnesota, because we're downwind of that, because it's going from the west to the east all summer long. So for people to tell me that, oh, pull all your males, I agree. You don't want a field of males. What's the point? You're not going to get the cannabinoids out of it, so there's no point to raise a male. But being worried about pollinating, you know, 90% of the fields out here in Minnesota, 90% of the plants, probably even higher than that, are going to get seeds on them if you let them go. And the only way you're going to stop that in Minnesota is you got to grow indoors with filters, because that's the only way you're going to stop a plant from doing what it wants to do. It wants to get pollinated, it wants to continue, and it wants to seed so that the next generation continues the genetic. So that's just nature. So I do think in Minnesota, what's going to happen over probably 5-10 years, most people will stop growing outdoors, and or if they're going to grow outdoors, they're going to grow a grain variety and they're going to grow a fiber variety. Because why are you going to do CBD if, unless you've got tons of money and you want to grow indoors, I don't know why you're going to want to do CBD or CBG if it's going to get seeded and, you know, ruin your crop or not produce fine smokable product. Even when you're doing extraction, if it's all seedy, you're going to get less cannabinoids out of it because the seeds are going to get processed with the bud. So that's just my feeling, is the place that Minnesota really needs to go and really focus on, and even the Midwest, is probably more fiber and grain. Canada, I mean, we got Canada too. I mean, they're just to the north of us. If we get north winds in the summer, which we do, they're growing grain. That's all blowing down here too.
Yeah. Yeah. North Dakota, the NDSU people, we talk to a lot of them, and that's their vision for North Dakota, is seeing the industrial, the tall varieties that they plant like grass. And they see that as being a perfect adjunct to soybeans, canola, sunflowers, sugar beets where you can, and the small grains. They just see hemp as becoming, one more crop rotation. They love what it does to the soil when it's in the rotation. Of course, it can grow somewhat dry, so they love it in the western side. And they believe that hemp will become just another
it'll be another
farmer's toolbox.
It'll be another commodity. I mean, the thing is, think about it. During 1942 to 1955, with Hemp for Victory, so the USDA actually encouraged farmers to grow hemp during World War II, because the Philippine Islands were occupied by the Japanese, and that was our source of hemp. And we needed hemp for cordage for all the ships. We needed hemp for all the backpacks, all the webbing, all the belts. This is before DuPont. This is before nylon. And so we had thousands of acres in Minnesota. There were 7 textile mills in Minnesota. And then they came in 45 and they just said, nope, done with the program. They went in, they burned all these fields, and then they basically scrapped all the plants. So there's no textile plants anymore. But at some point, and that's why we have feral hemp. I mean, that is why we have feral hemp in Minnesota. It's left over from 45. And that's the stuff we really should probably be working with genetically. We should be cross-pollinating that with this fiber hemp from China. And we should be building up that genetics, because that genetics has been here for 80 years.
And so we know that it grows here winters, it's strong, it's hardy. And we're trying to find some, by the way. If you know where there's a plot, we've been talking to the railroad guys, we've been talking to county agents, and
that's the sad thing with the government, is they've tried to eradicate this plant for years, and so it's harder to find. And then, at one point between 42 and 45, guess what? The USDA was keeping seeds. They had all this cannabis. They had it, and then they destroyed it. So now we're all back, looking for seeds. We're looking for seeds. Who knows where those seeds came? They probably came from the Philippines. We don't know where they came from.
Sure.
But now it's a matter of, just like you're saying, going out and finding these old stands, and they are all over. I mean, I hear it all the time. Even a buddy of mine had a friend of his, a hemp plant. Maybe it's marijuana, but hopefully it was just a hemp plant that shot up in one of their, garden plots. So again, birds are flying around, they're pooping the seeds. That's what's going to happen. So, there are stands of it. Do I know? I actually called out to Facebook to say, hey, tell me where some
we have too.
And I want to find a good stand. I want to get it tested, make sure that it's, got low THC, because that's the other thing too. You don't want to start playing with a genetic that's not going to do you any good, because if it's at, 3% or 2%, it's not going to pass. But if we can find that and then either cross-pollinate or just use that genetics, that would be the best thing. And the thing is, we need to get to those genetics before they do get cross-pollinated, because obviously now I'm growing a fiber hemp from China, and you've got all the legacy hemp, you know, X59 out there. So if people are growing that, that's going to pollinate with that wild hemp, and that's going to degrade the genetics.
Yeah.
So we really only have maybe 5 to 10 years to really truly play with those genetics before they get so watered down that they aren't even what they were. I mean, for over 80 years they've been probably cross-pollinated a bit, but most of it's probably still that same strain, whatever it was.
Very local, very, yeah. No, a farmer, talking to a farmer the other day at the airport, and in the back of his pickup, he brought me this head. And I said, you know, I thought maybe I found the mother lode, you know, because it was full of seeds. And where did you get that? Where did you get that? Tell me where you found that. And he goes, oh, I was over by Grand Forks. There was a whole field of it. And I'm going, oh, darn.
No.
He said, yeah. He said, you walked out in a guy's field and you grabbed a head of it? He said, oh, yeah, I know him really well. And he said, he was not happy. He does not understand the difference between marijuana and hemp. And he thought that, you know, this was a bad. I said, dude, there's no THC in this. THC is the part that gets you high. I assure you, this is going to someday make blue jeans, and it's going to make paper, and it's going to make housing insulation. And I went down the whole road. But yeah, for just a moment there, the lights came on, and I thought there was some orchestra music in the background, and I had found some feral hemp. And then I took it from a guy's field. So just for a moment, we thought that we had it. Well, you've talked about that you are now raising CBD hemp also. So tell me about that. What's going on with that?
Yeah. So what really kind of pushed us toward that? So we were doing the X59. We did that the first 2 years, and then last year we ended up, after the 2018 Farm Bill was signed into law. See, prior to that, I knew about CBD. I did not feel comfortable selling CBD or going down that road because it technically was not federally legal yet.
Right.
And if I started selling CBD and the feds decided to come in to the property and clear everything out and say that, hey, this is everything that I own is, you know, tied in with this drug operation, I would lose everything. So I waited till the 2018 Farm Bill was signed, and then in spring of 2019 we started selling CBD, not our own CBD, but just, you know, local CBD manufacturers, and then some from California and out west. And then I think it was early last summer, like May, June, I went and procured 3 varieties, and we started growing those varieties indoors and basically building up our genetics. So then we got some mother plants going. So we had some plants under 24-hour vegetative light, and we started cloning off of that. And then then we built up a lot of clones so that we knew that this year we'd be ready to go out in the field. And then we also procured some more seeds from out west. We used Oregon CBD, and then we popped in those for our field this year. So we have 3.5 acres of high CBD, and then 1 variety of CBG. We have the white, which is a CBG variety. And that, you know, again, the reason I decided to go ahead with that is that since the Farm Bill states that anything below 0.3 is deemed legal industrial hemp, then I said, okay, I'm good to go. I'm under the MDA. You know, obviously we've been licensed and permitted with the MDA for now 3 years. And I felt like, you know, it's a safe move to make. And then we have a store. We started a store last July in our farmhouse. So we have a store where we sell CBD, but we also are a processor. So we also have cured flower. We do hemp teas. And then we have our own CBD line now. So I still carry local CBD brands. So I have Sunny Skies, Priceland Hemp, Southern Soda, and then I have other brands from California, Colorado, Arizona, and New York. But really, I'm trying to, you know, kind of use CBD. I mean, obviously, and I know a lot of people are looking at it, oh, well, you're kind of chasing the money. The CBD is where the money's at now. But hopefully, as fiber comes online and as there's processing for fiber, then we'll be able to kind of transition into the fiber. The other thing too, since we're growing the CBD and we're learning from that, if and when the state decides to go recreational, and if it's not astronomically expensive to go recreational, we just switch our genetics. and now we've got recreational going. So there's kind of these things that we're working with, and I'm always, you know, turning the wheels, trying to figure out which way to go in. So right now we have our hemp maze, and then we also are offering our hemp farm tours. So you can get on an 8-person golf cart. You can actually go around the whole property. You can go out and you can be really close to our high CBD, high CBG flowers. And we have over 800 plants out in that field. And then we are working with 11 cultivars this year. So we had 9 of them test last week. And unfortunately, one variety was hot, but luckily we only had 11 of those plants. So that is going to be one that we're going to destroy, but the rest of our crop is all good. So
this is an older picture here. This is your barn.
Yep, and that's the pumpkin patch.
And that was the pumpkin patch that you talked about, but now this is a newer picture here. And
yeah,
there's the hemp maze.
Yeah, and then that was probably taken in July, so you can see that it's all emerald green, and there's really none of the plants are presenting their sex yet. That the males started to pop, probably they started to show themselves, I would say, beginning of August, and then the females were quite late. I mean, you could kind of tell if you were looking close enough, you could tell they were females, but the females really didn't start to present their flowers until mid-August.
Wow.
So it was quite amazing, because I was even thinking about that last night, that, you know, these plants now have been growing for 120 days and they're still growing. So again, you got to think about it. You're getting seed from China, and the Han Ma is the Han Ma is a really good variety, because in this latitude, it's pretty much the same latitude of the Han Ma district in China. But you are probably looking at, I would say, at least 90 days until you're maybe at the top of the height. But again, maturity, gosh, it's probably more close to 100 days to 100. I wouldn't say 120, because we're at 120 now, but I would say it's about 100 days to maturity. And then, you know, right now, if you went out there and look at those seed heads, there is seeds on the females, but they're not hardened off yet. So I don't know how many of those would actually be viable yet. So even if we were to harvest, you know, in a week and a half here, if you were trying to harvest for seeds as well, I think you'd have to wait later. So again, this is a crop that you got to get in early, and you got to probably pull it out pretty late, you know, end of September, beginning of October.
And, you know, for us, just being this 350 miles farther north, you know, we've already had a hard couple of days of frost here.
Oh, yeah.
And May 15th is really pushing it as far as putting it in the ground in the spring. So this looks like it's a crop that's almost outside of our average year growing seasons for us. So
yeah, and that's probably again another reason why you know, looking for that feral hemp and trying to get that genetics going, because that's what we got to do, is we got to find something that's going to work in Minnesota.
Absolutely. I always think of it as Minnesota green. I don't know why, but even when I was 20 years old, I named it Minnesota green. So we've got to go find some of that.
Yep.
So then how are you processing your CBD? When you harvest it, you're drying it, or are you air drying it, or are you putting it in a machine in some way?
Yeah. So CBD obviously is a little bit different than our fiber crop, but the CBD, what we're planning with that is we have a, 40 by 90 foot, so 3,600 square foot Quonset hut. So we are going to hang dry all of that. And that's one thing, you know, I always tell people, because we have people that come out here that want to get into it and want to grow. And I say, only grow as much as you can dry.
Absolutely.
Can't dry it, there's no purpose in growing it, especially when you're looking at the CBD side of things. So we're hoping the majority of our flower will be good enough to use for our premium buds for smokable, and then also for our teas, because we got tea blends that we're working on.
Now, what's tea blend? Let's explain that for our listeners.
Yeah. So we have hemp tea. So basically what we do is we take all of the sugar leaves off of so when we trim our buds, all those sugar leaves, we take those, and since the sugar leaves have a high amount of trichomes on it and still have CBD present and cannabinoids present, we take those and we basically blend them in with different herbs. So we've got, you know, mint, we've got lavender, chamomile, that kind of stuff. So what we're basically doing is blending those and just making tea bags, and then selling them, bringing them to market and selling them as, you know, as tea. So that's kind of what we're doing right now with that. And then obviously there's a smokable side of it. And then if we've got stuff that's not of high quality for smokable or tea, then that will go into extraction. And we do have a processing license to process on site. So we may do some of that small extraction, but to do large extraction, I don't have lab equipment for that. And since I'm set up as agritourism, the insurance company, and this is important for anyone that's thinking about, oh, I'm going to get fully integrated. I'm going to go ahead and grow it. I'm going to process it. I'm going to manufacture it and sell it. Just understand, if you're going to grow, you're going to have to set up separate entities, because we are an ag farm. We're agritourism, but my insurance, Farm Bureau, they're great. They're wonderful, but they really aren't into the processing. So if I start to do full on processing, large extractions, and I'm putting it into tinctures and topicals and what have you, then really I need to set up a separate LLC, and that needs to be a separate entity. Now I could have that all on the same farm, but it's got to be a separate business. They don't want to insure that under the agritourism.
Interesting.
So
okay.
For me, it doesn't really, I guess my thing is I'm a grower and I'm an agritourism guy. So for me to actually set up a lab, set up a whole separate business and run with it does not make too much sense to me when I can drive my material a half hour away, and I've got friends that are processing and I can bring it to their lab and they can process it and get the job done. I'd rather just pay them and then take my product, take my crude or take my distillate and do what I want to do with it. Because once I have the distillate, then I can, you know, choose to do what I want to do.
Of course. Absolutely. And they're doing it every day, or most every day. So they've got a handle on it rather than one more thing to learn, right? One more thing to.
Yep. And then you've got the staff involved. I mean, if you're going to run a lab, it's not like I can just switch on a lab and do it myself. I mean, I've got one guy out here that helps me grow, and it's myself. So in order for me to set up a whole lab and go with it, I don't want the headache.
Well, I'm with you there. You know, we have on purpose, as we're learning, you know, we have tried to do every kind of extraction. We've done ethanol. We actually have a little washing machine where you're washing it out. And, bubble hash and
some bubble hash.
Well, we've got some in our freezer, and it's quite interesting. We've got several.
John, is that bubble hash above 0.3?
Well, we only just now got the tester where we can put that in the tester to test that. So it has never left the room that it was made in. Yeah. So
the only thing, the reason I said that real quick is that, and I know you're probably aware of this, but the DEA is becoming quite a pain in the behind. I don't know if they will, but they are basically saying that they have the right to raid any of these labs, because at some point during your processing, it's always going to concentrate. Yeah, it's concentrate. So usually it's tenfold. So if you have a flour that tests at 0.3, when you either rosin press it, you do a bubble hash, you do ethanol extraction, you do CO2, you do butane, you do ethanol, guess what happens? Goes from 0.3 to 3.0. Technically, what is that? That's marijuana, even though it's probably real low. It's still, that's what they're trying to say, is it's marijuana. So again, this is another thing I like to talk about it, because I want people to understand that they need to go to their legislators and they need to say, hey, this is industrial hemp. This is industrial hemp derived. When it gets on the shelf, we're not going to sell it if it's above 0.3. But at some point in the process, it's going to be concentrate. And until you reconstitute it into a tincture, into a topical, into a gummy, it's going to be high. But once you reconstitute it in, you still got to, I mean, that it's further testing. So you got to test your final product before you give it to the consumer. And if it's below 0.3, it's back to industrial hemp.
And conceptually, it's going to be way below 0.3, because, you know, the average dose, there's a lot of talk about what should be a typical dose. And that's a fraction of 0.3. So,
correct.
So, except in smokable, of course, I guess in a smokable, that would be sort of right at that line if they were buying a actual smokable bud of product. But other than that, when it's in tinctures, when it's in lotions, when it's in any other kind of product, it's cut and then it's cut and then it's cut. So no, that's right. We've been very fortunate here. We have a great working relationship with the guys that are in the Pine to Prairie, it's called, the Drug Enforcement Task Force. We've had them out here. We show them exactly what we're doing. We've gone through, all of our steps with them. They know the door is open to them anytime because it's all about education. It's all about trying to make everybody really smart so that there's no wacky situation that happens because somebody, you remember what happened in South Dakota here last winter?
Yeah.
Even,
Chris,
where they,
Christy Noam to stop people along the way.
Yeah, the guy stopped a truck and he thought he had the biggest bust ever.
Oh yeah.
But the irony for the people that own the product in there, that was perfectly legal.
Well, 2018 Farm Bill, interstate commerce is completely legal as long as it's below 0.3. So again, it's one of those things where you have to educate and inform your legislators, because that's why we're in this business, to be honest with you. I mean, when we started Hemp Maze Minnesota, it's to educate and inform, and that's what we do. Even when they come into our store, we educate and inform. The whole purpose of the farm tour this year is we educate and inform, and I'm educating the lay public. I'm educating the farmer. I'm educating even kids, students, family. So it is about educating, and the more education that people receive, the less they are worried about this plant, the less that they have these preconceived notions. I mean, most of us grew up where drugs were bad. We had DARE and we had all this, stuff that was pushed upon us. And the fear mongering started with the marijuana tax of 1937. And it's just existed and gone on for way too long. And it's time for a wake up of everybody to realize that this plant has thousands of uses. It's connected to us because the civilization, we were growing this thousands of years ago, and we have receptors in the body. There's an endocannabinoid system with receptors. Why would we have receptors in our body if we weren't meant to use this? And so that's where I'm at. I'm like, okay, you need to educate yourself, do your education, form your own conclusions. Don't let somebody else tell you that it's bad or it's wrong, or that we can't, use industrial hemp, because it could really save the planet if we were using it as we should.
It's exactly right. That's exactly right. I think we should leave it right there. I think that's a statement that covered everything. Let's take a couple of minutes, though. Tell our listeners where, when, and what they can enjoy down there at the Willow Willow's Keep Farm.
Yeah, so Willow's Keep Farm is located at 47385 Highway 52 Boulevard. That's just south of Zumbrota, Minnesota. So we're about 45 minutes from St. Paul, and then we're north of Rochester about 15 minutes. We're right on 52. You can't miss us. I mean, if you do, I don't know, you probably were asleep. But yeah, we have our Hemp Maze runs now through October 31st. We're open 7 days a week. During the week, it's 11 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., Saturday 11 a.m. to 5 p.m., and Sunday 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. Now, not only do we have the hemp maze, but we have a gourd walk. So I have a trellised gourd walk that you walk through, and there's all these different varieties of gourds. They're hanging over your head. So there's hundreds of gourds hanging in that gourd walk. There's also, we don't play cornhole on this farm. We have a hemp pole game. So we play hemp pole. And then we also have gourd slings. So we have a target range with gourd slings where you shoot gourds at pumpkins and zombies and tombstones. And then come October 9th is when we turn on Fright at the Farm. So Fright at the Farm will be running this year on Friday, Saturday nights from 7 to 11 p.m. starting October 9th through October 31st. And that is a scare of all scares. It is teen to adults. And this year it's an all outdoor event. We will have our actors masked, and we ask that if you're coming to the farm, please wear a mask. And then we will be doing an abandoned circus theme. So we're going to have circus characters and sideshow characters all throughout the farm. So join us for a great fun-filled fall. You know, the weather's great this week, and we're just going to keep running with it. It's beautiful out here. The maze is beautiful. It's over 10 feet high. You can walk in there and just enjoy it, smell it. It's wonderful. It's a great experience for you and your family and even your pets. You can bring your pets out on a leash. Enjoy it.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Ted's email has come across on Facebook. There's a quick way to get there, and what's the quick way on Facebook?
Well, if you want to check us out on Facebook, just go to Hemp Maze, Minnesota. We'll pop up. And then we also have Willow's Keep Farm. And then you can also check us out at hempmazemn.com. hempmazemn.com.
There it is, hempmazemn.com. Ted, thank you for joining us today, and we got to stay in touch. We're going to just see what's going on down there, and we got to exchange some seeds and see how some of your seeds grow up here in the Northern Valley, and just see how things go. And boy, I'm sure the pumpkin patch is going to be busy now as people are getting ready for Halloween.
You know what? We don't, John. We're no longer doing pumpkins.
No, doing the pumpkin patch is completely gone. Okay.
I grew some pumpkins out at my house, so I've got 30 pumpkins on the deck, and when they're gone, they're gone. We're not doing pumpkins. I told my wife last night, I don't even know if I'm going to do pumpkins at the house. It's not worth it.
Okay.
Why do that? We got hemp.
We got hemp. That's right.
We got hemp. I don't need to grow anything else. No hemp. No, just hemp. Just hemp's good for me.
All righty. I'm loving it. Thank you for being on our show today. We appreciate everybody who watches. It's just a wonderful day. Join us again tomorrow for another edition. It's Have You Heard, of course, tomorrow, our short version of the show. And the week is going by so fast. Get out and enjoy these wonderful days of fall. Everybody have a great time, and we will see you again real soon here on Chat Canna.